talking to today, who is a massive, big influence in the whole world of snowboarding, understands the media, the marketing game, transitioned out into a whole bunch of other stuff, which we're about to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Marc Frank Montoya from marcfrankmontoya.com. How are you, my friend?
Yo, what's up, man? How are you doing, man?
A-okay. So I'll start here. You wake up now in 2021, but you've had a huge history from in a world that isn't in snow. Are you happy with where you're at right now, headspace wise, everything wise? Like how you feel? You've lived an entire crazy world that not many people have lived, and you wake up and you're like, 2021, here I am, out of the game, but in the game. How are you feeling, and how's the headspace, and how is life as Mr. Marc Frank Montoya in 2021?
I'm so stoked, and thanks for having me on. I'm stoked to even connect, man. I'm like right now is in the best stage ever, pretty much, like ever. We're just in a good, like the greatest space. We just moved over here to Carlsbad, California, and I had no idea how great it was to really like be here and live here. You know, I always kind of fought coming to California because I thought, oh, you can't retire early, it's too expensive, and you know, I was all about kind of the financial freedom thing, trying to get free, you know. And but man, it's insane here. So happy wife, happy life. This was on our dream board for like 10 years, you know, over 10 years. So pretty cool. We're stoked. I think we're sweet.
So in 2020, 2021, most of the world is a lot of players are leaving California. You've gone to it.
Yeah.
So you're keeping that consistent. So rewinding back from the world of snowboarding into it, transitioning out of, for those who aren't aware, professional career for almost 2 decades, pro model, pretty much everything top to bottom, pro one of the most recognized iconic snowboarders in the game. What was the biggest thing that you took out of snowboarding that you've taken into life outside and after snowboarding? What was the biggest insight or learning, or just from a headspace perspective of transitioning out of that game? Because a lot of athletes don't do it well. And I'm just wondering, from the hikes and the peaks of what you went through from the 90s and the 2000s, transitioning out, what did you learn that others potentially haven't?
Wow. Great question. Man, so many lessons in there, so many lessons. And I'm actually surfing a lot right now, and there's like so many analogies about the whole surfing game. But one of them for sure is like, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you, and the meaning you put on it. So, like since the beginning, people are telling you, they give you their advice and their opinions, right? So they're like, what are you gonna, so I found a skateboard. I found my passion early. I just wanted to be a skater. My dad's like, what the, there's a story behind there. I wasn't supposed to be a pro snowboarder or anything, right? But I was supposed to go to soccer, like, because that was the only way I was going to go to college. We didn't have any money, so I was supposed to get a soccer scholarship, but I found that skateboard, so I found my passion. That's another thing, doing what you love, because I just believe if you love what you do, that's success. Doesn't matter the money. Money comes as a side effect to how good you get at whatever you're doing, because you do it a lot. But I had found my passion, so people got to give you their opinions and advice, right? So I quit soccer just to be a skater. High school was done, and I wasn't going to college, right? So he's like, "What the fuck you gonna do with you? What are you gonna do with that stupid?"
You can swear, mate. I don't care. It's fine.
Okay. All right. So what the fuck are you gonna do with that stupid skateboard? You need to go to school and get a job, right? And I'm like, I'm hearing it from everyone in my and luckily through skateboarding, I found snowboarding, and then I got to hear it from everybody from there, because my friends were moving up to the mountains. They're like, we're gonna go be ski bums for a couple years. You want to go? And I just like took off to the mountains, and then I come back home, and everybody's like, when are you gonna stop doing that? You go to the hospital, break your bones, get back up. Like, there's a lesson right there, right? Go to the hospital, break your stuff, get back up. Most people just kind of, something happens, they stop, let go of the dreams. Just people kind of give up and dabble in things. for some reason, I'm not a dabbler.
Mm.
So like, that's a big lesson right there. Don't be a dabbler, man.
The positioning of life after snowboarding around business is one that many don't do well, but it comes about positioning yourself with what you do and how you do it. In the snowboard world, it would probably be arguable. You're probably one of the I'd say top 3 most well-branded entities that existed, right? And, I talked to, obviously I came through the snowboard world a little bit, obviously lower, at different level, New Zealand or whatever. But I asked a few of my snowboard friends, I said that I was going to be talking to you. And it was really interesting because in a world where everyone was doing, 1080s and 900s and all sorts of crazy shit and going far, 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 far this way, everyone's like, yo, dopest back ones ever. Yo, crazy. And it was something to it because the branding of less was more, done right, done well.
Yeah.
How was your headspace? How did you think about the brand of MFM in the snowboard world with how you actually approached the way you would position yourself? Because obviously you're not just a white dude that's rich. I wasn't just a white dude that was rich. What was your headspace strategically with how you played and positioned yourself in the space? Was it conscious? How did you think about it? Because it's something that I think a lot of people would really, really, really like to know.
Yeah, man. Okay, Robett. So I didn't really know what I did when I did it. Right. I just rolled up in there, cornrows. I was broke. But what I did like is how they would look at me like, and I wasn't supposed to be up there, and that made it fun.
Yeah.
Right, because the skiers just hated us, man. So that made it fun to mess with them, And so I was different. I knew I was different, and but man, the community, everybody was so cool. It was so different from the inner city where everybody, like, I was pretty much programmed to walk around in school because inner city school, all my homies are gang members, so you kind of programmed to like not smile and look tough and whatever. So I was like a mean little. And so you don't talk to each other, you try. Nobody's like that up in the mountains, man. They just took me in, and I love the people, and so I just like being around. I started making new friends. That's another lesson right there. Is like you got to change your environment, man. I didn't know what I did when I did it, but I accidentally changed my environment. God put a skateboard in my life and the snowboard in my life to like, and so. But then, I know now, like later, I just inspired a lot of people because I started getting all these letters into the magazines like, man, you're the reason I snowboard, man. I'm an inner city kid too, dog. Like, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of like, this is cool because this is different. I knew, and people liked that I was different. I'd make them laugh, man, the way that like the way I fucking talk and all, like just all crazy. They were like giggle, and I don't know. It's cool. They let me be me, and.
But you built a brand, though. This is the difference is that's your personality of like, you're outgoing, you're fun, you're from the streets, but you're in the snow. There's all these kind of weird dichotomies, and you're in a world where, I was a poor sort of brown kid from I don't know, Christchurch, but I was in a kind of a rich white world, and it was very similar to yourself. The difference being your positioning. Like I genuinely think at a moment you probably had the most pro models, partnerships, collabs with any brand in the snowboard industry. You had, I think, Pro Model, you had flipping headphones with Skull Candy and ICA headwear, and you had Tech 9, everything. Like it was just top to bottom, head to toe, Pro Model, everything. What was your commercial strategy that you used going into when things started to accelerate and get bigger? How did you think about the brand of MFM in the world of commercialization?
Yeah, I was just being me, man. Like that's another lesson. You can't care what other people think about you, right? Like I just didn't really care. So I was just being a freaking nut the way I wanted to. But then I knew, okay, it's like, man, people are liking this, right? And now I know, man, when you try to market, this is the problem with snowboarding and everyone else, man. When you try to market to everyone, you market to nobody because you're not niching, right? You ever heard that saying? It's on one of the dits, like when the RZA or the Jizza, he's like, you don't see any Burton tattoos on people. Or sorry, like he didn't say that. He said you don't see any G Unit tattoos on people. You see Wu-Tang tattoos.
Yeah.
right? Like no mainstream out there tattoo. So, but you see Tech 9 tattoos, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like me, hip hop dude. So I was just being me. There was a lot of haters going, who's this kid? Thinks he's all blah, 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 right? And there's like, most of them are haters. You know, they might not like you. But the more that they don't like you, the more that the niche loves you. And that's the only thing why they're like, man, that's the only thing. That's my brand. That's me right there.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
Like you're hitting them right there, man. Like you know that because they can identify. So when I was doing I would just do crazy, you know, whatever I thought. And then some of the companies are like down with it. That was the best thing ever because World Industries, one of the first ones, like they weren't scared to put out the crazy stuff. And then I got that one model with Sims, and there was like women marching. I had no idea. I didn't know I was being like chauvinist or anything, but they were like marching against me for a second because I had a weird, you know, graphic, and I had no idea. I was just being a stupid kid, but just, you know, being me. And the dope brands will be controversial and not be scared. Everybody's scared.
Do you have a manager, or was it all who negotiated? Was it all you, or how did it work?
In the beginning, yeah, and then my once kind of, you know, once that became a thing, like where you have an agent and stuff, my friend, one of my good friends that I trust a lot, with Todd, he's like, man, you know, I'm gonna connect with these guys and be an agent. Would you do it? And I just wanted to help him. We can help each other. And man, we helped each other. You know, I didn't know there was all that outside industry, and I was never. I had a journey to take as far as talking to people and networking and being open and out there. And so he had that gift. I learned so much from snowboarding. That was the first, like, someone, you know, really helped me out. My friend Kelly Flynn, like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was a little gangster dude, pretty quiet, and I just like, nah. I don't know, you know, people are looking for sponsors and stuff. So this guy, Kelly Flynn, he kept, literally, God put that guy in my life too, because I didn't believe in myself, man. I was pretty good, but I didn't think I was like all, you know, whatever. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'm not like a networker kind of, you know, personality. I wasn't before. And he starts going, dude, you're good, man. You could be like sponsored. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I thought he was blowing smoke up my ass, man. I was like, you know, when you like, you go, yeah, you know, and I that's because I didn't believe in him. He's like, no, man, like you should talk to some people, man. I'm gonna go talk to some people for you. Yeah. But man, he said this for years, like years, and he kept going, no, dude, I'm serious. Like, I don't think you're listening. You can be pro if you wanted, right? And I was like, I didn't believe in myself. So like, if I talk about any more of that, I'll start crying because this guy had changed my life. It took like years for this guy to believe in. Like, he poured belief into me until I finally started to kind of believe it.
He was your Kaz D'Amato from Mike Tyson. It's the same thing, right? Kaz D'Amato to Mike Tyson, he got in his ear, was like, you can do this, you can do this. So he kind of switched it. So the headspace for you, as soon as it switched, did you feel it become a superpower that made you be like, cool, now I'm here, I'm about to run shit, and it just turned from like 0 to 100 real quick? Because it kind of felt, I don't know the exact timings or something, but it felt like there was a click of the like brand MFM. And what I thought was also really smart from a marketing perspective is the way you strategically partner with all these different brands. Clearly it was like, cool, if I'm on your brand, you need to advertise me. But then what would happen simultaneously is when there wasn't the internet like it was now, there wasn't all these other outlets. It was controlled by video parts and magazines. And when you've got all the different brands mandatorily pushing you simultaneously across the only controlled platforms which you could, by default, your brand went through the flipping roof because you was like, oh, there's a Skull Candy ad. Oh, there's a thing ad. Oh, there's a shit. Oh, shit. You know, it like you kind of strategically was an amazing marketing sort of play, and obviously the way you position as well. I need to give a lot of respect to the way that you did it. Even if it wasn't by design, maybe on paper, it was definitely thought out, because there was no one else that rolled like you, that talked like you, acted like you, dressed like you, rotary like you. But then as soon as you came, then all of a sudden a bunch of young rich white boys started rolling around with some do-rags and shit, trying to do these cab tail two steps and shit. I'm like, what the fuck? And then you see these like triple tall tee wearing things. I'm like, what the fuck? And obviously for me, I was like, yeah, shit, because that's how I was kind of really, obviously in New Zealand, small or whatever. And I think from a marketing play, it was really hats off and kudos to you, because not many people have been able to do it, which kind of segues perfectly to the next spot. When did you realize you were at potentially the peak of your powers within the snowboard game, and what was your headspace to potentially think about what was next? Is that when you decided to do the block thing? Is that when you did TV stuff? Like, what was the switch from, okay, now I've got all this leverage, how am I going to convert and commercialize it? What was your thinking there, and what time frame do you think that was?
Yeah, when I started thinking about that, that's when I was like, man, I'm gonna, have a brand, and I need a logo. Like, and I started thinking of like more general stuff that I would eventually branch out, because it's like, okay, that's in snowboarding. There's a lot more stuff, and I was already reading books, man. I millionaires told me to read certain books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and all that. So I'm like, man, I gotta stop making other people rich and make myself rich. So I started launching companies, and failed a bunch first. I got to fail forward and get back up, right? So I already knew that part.
Yeah.
So I just started trying things. But what? One thing I've never talked about this, but one thing that really bugged me was when I moved up to Vail, the way that I would be looked at. There some of the wealthier heads would look like they do this glance, like up and down, like that little bam bam, and I'd be like,
Dude.
motherfucker, I will crush, like I'll crush, like you're not smart. Like, so I started seeing they're not smarter than I am. They're not funnier. They're kind of goobery guys, and I'm like, I need to know what they know. They're not that. So I was like reading books and I wanted to be at that level, not looked at like a little couch surfing grubby little snowboarder.
What I think you probably realize as well is, for me, a smaller thing was, if you can look like you're from the streets, but mentally be at the C-suite, you instantly are the biggest threat. Because if they don't know what you know, but you know what they know, and they look down upon you, it actually disarms them, because their intellect actually is overfueled by ego and arrogance of some type of superiority. And I've seen it actually backfire a whole bunch. So I imagine you probably got to a spot where, a lot of people, you were probably in some rooms that people thought, here's some, this dumb flipping Hispanic dude doesn't know shit about whatever. And you're there, and I'm imagining some double XL flipping tall T and some flipping kicks or whatever. And then you actually understand what the game is. And did you find yourself in commercial situations at the back foot because you visually didn't roll like them? Like in deals, in business, in these other things. What rooms were you in that you felt kind of that same thing happen the way you were looked down upon?
Huge, man. I learned. So yeah, and there's probably a lot of deals that I might have lost, but maybe it wasn't for me, or maybe not at that time, because now I know, I'll chameleon, man. I'll suit up. I was always like, I'll never suit up. I used to wonder, like, well, how do people just sit in those buildings with suits on the whole time? I don't understand. I don't understand how they could ever do that. And so I was against suits. I love pulling up in a Range Rover with the girl, like the baddest looking girl and whatever. And like the suits would just look at you like, the fuck is this guy? I love that stuff, right? But then I learned my lesson when and you're right about the ego, because you can get an ego too and not be coachable and stuff after a while. But I was with my partner when we had the blocks, and we went into this big casino, so we were going to talk to the VP, right? So I roll up like me, my partner's suited up. Luckily, my partner was with me with a suit on, because I showed up first. So I opened the door. The guy, I saw him do the boom, boom. Like his little eyes just went, he just looked at me real quick, like, oh, God, this guy. And he walked back to his office. I'm like, oh, man, I'm glad my partner's here, And so we talked, and then he found out okay, I wasn't some grub. But, man, people judge, right? And so those are things to think about after a while when you're trying to do real legit bigger deals, because people do, it's not fair, but I like to suit up now on certain occasions. It makes you feel gangster sometimes, but not for anybody else, not to work for somebody else. I'm not a buster. Like, I'll suit up for me and my stuff when I feel like it.
No, I get it, man. It's the momentum shifting a lot with the optics of, what power can look like. Power doesn't necessarily need to look a certain way. anymore, and those with actual influence potentially sometimes now don't actually have the titles of influence. Some there's a lot. Sometimes I think the look of power is changing in a lot of environments. But I wanted to maybe rewind back a bit. So this was, you're talking to hotel to do. This is obviously the block, I think we're talking about. So this was what, 08, 09? When was the block? 07, 08, 09?
Yep.
So it's had an arc in a journey, popped down, whatever. Business partnerships work, didn't work. How would you tell the story of the block if you were an alien now, looking back at it? If you were telling yourself what the story was, like what is it in the arc of Marc Frank? What was that piece?
Just the block specifically?
Yeah, like lessons from the block, life from the block.
Oh, life from the block. Man, I don't. It just depends on the stage you're in, right? When I thought that up, it was from necessity, because we would just roll around and travel, and every time I go to a hotel, they were kind of greedy. They'd charge you for Wi-Fi if they even had it. Didn't even have any yet. They didn't. It was so boring. The only reason you go there is just like you don't want to be hanging out, right? It was just to go there and sleep. And we would never hang out in hotels. They weren't cool. So I just was like, man, if I had a hotel, I would do all this, cool stuff. And so I had these ideas. Met up with my partner, and we're like, we're gonna do this freaking. And then especially because the ski resorts, just a couple of them are still like skiers only. So we're like, snowboarder only, man. Forget it. It's like just be partying. Pure party. So at that stage, they're like, yeah, this party, like make it fun. After a while, though, man, I went through like a stage in my life where, I was like getting divorced, going through like being really busy and missing time with my kids, because I had kids in the process. So I'm like, started to think about more meaningful things. I'm like, what am I here for, man? Is it to help, seriously to help 21-year-olds get plastered and act like idiots at a hotel, or like what's, you just start thinking about stuff. So
yeah,
that's when all the other stuff opened up, for the next stage. So I just kind of grew out of it. And already I was kind of learning about all the self-development and automation and trying to get financially free, that kind of stuff. So I was like, man, looking at, I kind of just lost interest.
What do you think the biggest learning from it was? Like commercially, what did you learn commercially from it?
I think, well, watching who you can work with, being picky of who you can work with. Like, well, it's, man, people get funny with money when
currency reveals character, right? Because the way I kind of saw it from the outside, and you probably won't remember this, but when I had my snowboard website thing in New Zealand years ago, we did a feature and stuff on the block, and I'd reach out to you, and you hooked us up to go and actually stay there for a night. We did this whole profile piece and stuff and connected up with it, and it was like the same way Branson looked at air travel. Was like, hey, this is boring, let's make it fun. Yeah. Hey, the way, it's he had the mindset of what the intent would be, but then actually converting it out. Now you clearly had a similar thing of like, how do you sort of make that fun? But the team around that surrounds it's important, especially if your brand is at the masthead of it, but then operationally there's a disconnect of someone else that is respected or whatever. And that's what I was going to ask you about, that of just, from a commercial standpoint, if you were to redo it, what would you have done differently? Your runner back.
The right people for the right jobs, right? There's like different kind of personalities. Some are like accountant types with the safe and secure kind of structure, that kind of stuff. And then there's like the wild, heads that'll be in the marketing, and the marketing always fights with, like in Tech 9 and every other company, the marketers would fight with the accountants, because like, no, you can't waste all that money on marketing. He's like, well, if you don't do this, how are you going to bring in the money? Blah, blah, blah. It's like they go back and forth. So you need all kinds of the right people and the right personalities for the right jobs. And you want to, be picky of who you partner with, depending on the vision that you're trying to create. Right.
You obviously built up a bunch. Was this did the block sink you back down, or like where were you at? Was it like, hey, this is one of the 50 things I'm doing, stuff it next, 3-5%, whatever? Or was this like a shit, okay, this is big? Like, how big of a dip was it for you in terms of the ecosystem of Marc Frank?
Wow. No, it's a crazy story. So that was big, but my partner was running it, and see, that's that was my mistake. And I learned my weaknesses, which is the back end infrastructure kind of stuff, and to watch the money and have control, right? But I was gone all the time. I was being me, traveling and all that. So I really didn't have a lot to do. Ideas, branding, do as much as I could, but it was more like one of the things. And by then I had read a bunch of, like I said, wealth books that, they kind of start telling you, look for the people who have the life that you want, model them, and, how you're going to get free and all this stuff. And most business owners, they don't really own their business. It owns them and all their time.
Mm.
Right. Like, so basically they buy themselves a job. So I didn't want to be in that situation. Right. So I found out, and everybody thought I was crazy, but this was back then. Right. And now they don't think I'm crazy, because I was like, no, online stuff, man. I got into I got into another venture. It was like my first crazy experience of network marketing. Oh man, it's such a funny story, dude. But I was like, whoa, this is insane. Because, you can buy direct, right? No brick and mortar. So people can buy direct from a company. I'm like, wow, cut out the middleman. And they, but you can be the invisible middleman. That's what everybody does now. Affiliate marketing, internet marketing, all that kind of stuff. Everybody thought I was crazy, but like, man, I dug in there, and I didn't do so hot in the beginning, but so imagine, in traditional business, you're putting all your money into the thing. I lost my life savings. Well, that was one of the times I did that. Lost my life savings in a business venture. But, get back up, right? Fail forward. I learned.
Yeah.
And that's not a fail. It's a win. I learned every time. And so, but, so in regular business, you're putting all your money in for the first 5 years. Like, you got to keep putting the money back in, and you're the last one to get paid, right? You got to pay all your employees and everybody else first. And so, I knew that, and I was okay. And waiting for money to trickle back in from other businesses. But in the first couple of months, I was in profit in the home business stuff, all the home business stuff. And I'm like, this is way better. I don't have to have buildings, mortgage, insurance, employees, no overhead. I'm like, this is sick. But everybody thought I was crazy. I didn't do very good. So I just dug in and started getting like really serious about the automation, 24-hour, things that are online are 24 hours. I started learning all that. And I was looking at all my laptop lifestyle friends. These guys they used to bug me. I'm like, how the hell are you on the golf course on a weekday? I was so busy, like, missing out on my kids, and these guys are back and forth to Costa Rica. I'm like, dude, what do you do? What is that? Like, and they're giggling. I'm like, no, man, like, what is that?
So who was your we interviewed Meta World Peace a little bit ago, and we're talking about now he's got a tech investment fund and going pretty well, and fingers in a few pies. And I was asking him about wealth management of players. With you're in the locker room, people talk about where they're putting their money, who's doing whatever, and he was just like, "Oh no, bro, we talk about everything else but that." And I was like, "What? Why was there not a collective unification of sharing the knowledge of wealth with others?" He's like, "Oh, because you want to be the best. You don't want to say, well, I've got this, I've got that," and it becomes kind of some rah-rah macho shit. I'm interested from a snowboarder's perspective, who was in your commercial circle that was close to you during this time? Did you have like CFO caliber people close to you? Did you have strategic thinkers with global expansion experience in the tech space? What did you have and what didn't you have?
I was trying, dude. And this is why I'm so stoked to connect with you and everyone else to learn, right? Like, I started off with nothing, man. I didn't know any millionaires, like, until I got into snowboarding, right? And start to pay attention to people like Ken Block, and, like, how do they, and I'm just always trying to meet people and find out, right? But I still, up until that point, I didn't really have anybody. That was like my partner in the block was like a brother-in-law. And usually, I don't know what book I read, but it was one of the 7 mistakes or 7 types of investing that mistakes you can make is investing with a brother-in-law. That was like number 6 or whatever in it. And I was like, oh man, learn that later, right? But no, I didn't have that. I met all my mentors mostly in books at first.
Yeah, I asked because, logistically, when you were moving so much, unless they were with you from day one, how do you create depth in these relationships to get that insight. Like I was watching something recently with Rob Dyrdek, and he was talking about he's been super lucky that he's close with Dana White because they've shared him all the insights and the details, but you need to kind of almost like earn your stripes to get to the table. And for me, I've been lucky enough where what started out as charity, which was kind of like, here's this young buck piece of shit nobody that's just charging around doing some crazy shit, to like, oh, he's still going and winning. Oh, and he's still, and so you kind of, I feel anyway, I would hope after 10 years or so, earned my stripes through to credibility and general relationships. But then for you, I'm thinking, you know, logistically, you're on the flipping road the whole winters, you're traveling around, you got the skate thing going on. Like you physically weren't anywhere. So unless that team was set up before you started moving, it would have been you and your brain, because those around you, for me anyway, and I'm imagining it for yourself, the conversations of those other snowboarders in your lane, I don't think would have been the same as you. Like, how are we going to build this from a person to a platform? How do we create sustainable, you know, business ecosystem behind this to be able to, you know, generate revenue and all these different things? People aren't thinking about that. They were like, yo, let's go to Minnesota, hit some rails and drink some 40s and hook up with some hot chicks. You know, like I think, did you feel that there was tension because those around you, you were just on different wavelengths kind of commercially or mentally? Not talking down to your friends or anything, but were you lonely?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And well, and you know, they're your friends, but like, yeah, I remember one time my best friend Cole was like, dude, we were, you know, because I was listening to books on tape and just I couldn't get enough of, like, I was just like, so I went from like, you know, hip hop and, you know, have mentors like Busta Rhymes and Nas to like, you know, it turned into Jim Rohn and Anthony Robbins and all this stuff. I'm like shoveling, and I wouldn't talk to them because they're all talking about, oh man, last night it was crazy. We got so, or whatever they're talking about. I don't know, like the front side 720. And then I just have my headphones on, and my friend Cole goes, dude, you don't talk to us anymore. What's up? Like, you know, and I was like, oh man, I'm just I don't know, I'm learning, you know. And I remember that, right? But yeah, like, you know, people, I remember that clearly because, you know, it's a niche, right? And people are so into their thing. And I wasn't like all the way into just the snowboarding. I was like, man, by then I knew about, okay, making money with your passions, but, you know, like I was kind of just growing out, like, right. I wanted the next. I'm always after the next, pioneer explore new ideas. And I had learned to get my mind open and look for information, you know, so you can get the intel. So yeah, it was kind of lonely, and then but then I was still like in a place of not like emotionally intelligent, because man, they started taking shots at me, you know, in the magazines and stuff. And I was like, these motherfuckers, okay, you want to, and so I started taking shots back because at that time I was like emotionally not there, like I was just take things all personal, right? But so I shot back at all of snowboarding, which I shouldn't have. It's just like there's a good 20% of like a 10% negators that are just going to hate on everything, but I took it personal. So I was like, you guys are the ones that are, you know, whatever. Like, so I just got disenthused and took off into my next passion. And I just like bounced into my deal.
Do you still, how many days, you still shred now? You still skate? Still got a kickflip in you? Still got a back one?
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, I mean, not lately, not skating as much. Like I'm surfing every day, dude. It's not like try to be pro. It's just, man, like you get crazy fit. It's like the challenge thing is so hard. It's so stupid hard that man, there's some lessons in there, right? Like you gotta bust your ass for ever to even be able to catch a wave. And like in business, right? To get in front of the wave and catch a wave, you gotta be, you know, you got to be there.
What's your circle like around you now for your strategic stuff? Like who's in your bubble now? Has things changed? Have you brought crew in? Like, how do you think about your new ecosystem, your new world?
Great question. I'll always be the dumbest one in the room, man. Like I have a friend, Brandon Lowry, he's such a good person, a mentor. But we moved over here to California just to be mentored and be around the right environments, you know? So you want to be the dumbest one in the room, right? So like, if you're the smartest one in the room, then you need to get a new room or like
Mm.
you're the smartest friend, get new friends, right? And it's not like you're losing old friends. I love everyone to death. It's just to learn, and raise up because you're gonna be the product of your environment.
Yeah, the circle one's a tricky one. It's like levels. I remember watching this little documentary thing, and it had Snoop Dogg talking to ASAP Rocky, and it was kind of like old dog, young buck, and he was talking about, he's like, these levels to this shit, and basically if you and your homies from day one are here, and if you want to, if you want to get to here, they either got to come up, either you stay there and do nothing, or they have to come up with you. And so he was talking about the gap between the greatness of what you want to get to and those around you, if they'll support you and come and level their shit up to get to it. Or, probably similar to the other conversation, I'm sure you're in the backcountry there, they're talking about, partying, drinking and bullshit and girls and whatever, and you've got to flip an audio, Anthony Robbins headphones on. You're in two different lanes. There's a gap, And so what Cole was probably talking about was that gap. Now, when you maybe transition, but now, like when you actually back a sec, now when you look at the snowboard world, you're the Don, you were the guy, you were the dude. Who do you think has the torch in your niche? You were the Don in the niche, right? Who do you think has the torch now in that space, in your opinion, when you look at the snowboard world? Now, obviously we've had, recessions come through, demolish people. We've had so much different crazy shit, but with the current world of snowboarding today in 2021, who do you feel holds the torch?
Man, I feel bad. I don't feel bad. I'm busy, but the kid that rides for Nitro, I'm not plugged in all the way, but man, Torstein, so sick, dude. Sean White, I got so much respect for. Like, wow, mindset, everything, just badass. But the kid on Nitro, I'm gonna make myself look dumb here. He's sick though, with all the butters to the just crazy 60s, all way too much control.
What do you think of like the quads now, like triples and quads? Are, like, in your day, was it, back to back? I remember when I think it was the White Album, whatever came out, Sean White went, well, I think he was practicing at Snowpark. It must be maybe 05 or 06. He was doing, all 4 nines. It was like, oh, he's going to do all 4 nines. It was like the biggest thing in the world. And now I watched, I think, X Games Big Air, and it's flipping switchback quad 16, front 18, tail. And I'm like, what the fuck? How did this shit happen? Like, what do you, when you look at the talent now and what they're doing, what do you think? Would you do it again? Is that a smart choice? Does the back one still prevail? What do you think of snowboarding in 2021?
Yeah, no, it's not that hard. I mean, if I had an airbag too, I'll bust that out. You know what I mean? Like, because like back then, that was the level back then that we were messing with that, and to be pioneering that stuff. Now they're pioneering this, but this guy's got airbags and all this crap. So it's not that, it's pretty crazy, but when you're younger, you can take beatings too. It's not like
one of the questions that
I can't believe I can't think of this kid's name.
Is it Marcus Cleveland?
Yeah, Cleveland. Thank you. Yep.
Marcus Cleveland. Yeah, I was thinking it was. I just was like, I didn't want to. So I was going to ask. One of my friends asked me to ask, what's your favorite ever J2 story?
Oh no, man! There's so many.
Because I never met the dude, and it was obviously like sad to hear what had happened. But I just remember when I was younger watching this thing, like, this dude is wild. Like, he was wearing some crazy orange pants and these funky weird like gap shifty 50s and shit. I'm like, it's like a stand-up comedian mixed with a gymnast circus acrobat, but drunk, smoking, and on a rail. Like, it was just this weird is that a fair, accurate description of J2, or am I way off?
Man, it's just like he wasn't even trying to be like that. It was just like normal him, just so genuine, man. He was so warm to everyone. So like he was one of the first that was just such a warm, friendly dude without being like overly friendly, just man, so cool. Come on, guys. And like a session wasn't a session without him. Like he made every session so fun because I learned to have fun being around him because, sometimes I can be way too serious too. Right. And like, but man, just watching him go around and like find the little nickiest thing that you could jump on and twirl around on. He'd find everything in the run, right? Even some flat dead run. And all of a sudden everybody's like so stoked, hitting up, following each other, hitting all these stupid little twigs or whatever. And but he would do that with everything. He'd motivate us to, guys, I found this full pipe, like a little tight little, like not even, not very high, right? Really sketchy. And I found it, come on. And it was like, but it's in this locked thing. We got to cut the chain. And like, there's a dog in there. And so, like, we're like, serious, dude? And he's like, no, come on. And he'd get us going in there, and we did it and got the footage. And I'm like, damn, I would have never, like, so many things I never would have done if he wasn't there to make it happen. He just made it.
So it's a mindset. Yeah. The mindset of the radical optimist who always has a different lens than many, and not too many people have that. I know, but it felt like he had like an infectious energy that he could walk into a room of 20 people that were hating their day, and he just rolls through, and it's just like, and then that's he feels like the first snowflake in a snowball that chooses to start the avalanche. He's like, no, we're going. Stuff this shit. Let's boogie.
Everyone has one in their group, right? And you can't go on a trip without them.
Yeah, it's even just there was I forget what it was talking about. People won't remember what you said or whatever. They'll remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I even met him. Don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say I am close in any way, but the energy of what I saw from afar, from everything that was created, he was clearly a guy like that made people feel a certain way, that brought joy and energy and positive momentum, and kind of just like in many ways, probably like a good positive glue for a good time in your life as well. So I'm sure you've got plenty of memories which probably aren't suitable to be discussed publicly.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. He got us in so many situations and fun, after the bar and all that stuff. But again,
what's one drinking story of J2 which not many people would know from a night out that went south, and you woke up and you're like, how did that shit happen?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. We can't. It's the one that we can't talk about. There was like girls involved,
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
like,
maybe not that one.
But yeah, I mean, that's young stuff. But you wake up, you don't know where you are, how you got there, how you're gonna get out of there. Like none of it. And that's it. It's the story you tell later. It's priceless. He was a gift.
I remember the footage of you just spraying skiers. And I was just thinking about before we chat, I was like, I wonder, for those that aren't aware, so as part of certain video parts would just be these crazy aggressive toe side slashes, just demoing skiers, like smoking them. And I think I don't know where it was in Utah or Colorado, but it was that crazy slush spring shit. So it was just like walloping these dudes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, I wonder how many people, because we started just spraying skiers, we thought it was funny. I wonder how many. I wonder the butterfly effect. Have you ever thought about how many fights have got into, people, altercations on the mountain, people getting kicked off the mountain, ski patrol arresting people, police getting involved, and fights that have been started because you created 3-second snippets of you just toe-side demoing skiers in Utah. Have you thought about the consequences of your actions, Marc Montoya?
Yeah. No, I've lived through them too, man. One time, so he's like, so many. Yeah, but
give me one. Go.
I went to Keystone one time to get, like, they gave me a pass, right, a free pass. But I went to go get in. They're like, "Oh, this is you, huh?" And I was like, "Huh? You're the one that did the thing." We get people every day coming in here complaining because snowboarders are spraying their skiers, and they like almost didn't give me that pass. like these corporate guys with the sweaters on, like they were mad, you know.
Oh, dude, it's so. Were you aware of Were you aware of the following that you had? Because you were more influential than social media influencers without social media. Were you aware that, you do a spray skiers and then you get all these fights? When you were thinking about like all your butters, you do a lot of different flat ground butter tricks and all sorts of shit, simple, cool shit done dope. And it was just weird because it was so, people are off like, let's do, Ross Power's 20-foot methods. Let's do, crazy shit here. And it's like, no, I'm just going to do like a cat tail switch 2-sev, do-rag face mask, all this shit. And that's what popped. Like, did it ever surprise you, or your thoughts about the influence that you actually had from a trick influence side of, because if there was a history Bible that comes out of the Hall of Fame of snowboarding, those two things would definitely be in there, which I'm sure would be like back ones, straight ears, and dope, spraying skiers and butters. Have you thought about that as well?
I have now, yeah, like, because that has a lot to do with the marketing that you asked about, right? But back then, I was just doing, I learned early, only do, like, I learned all those lessons, go after like the passion, not the money and all that stuff. And just do what feels good. So I would just do what feels good. And then you do a lot of it, and then you get stupid good at it, right? Like, I'm more scared of the person who knows only one kick but has done it 1,000 times than I am the dude that knows 1,000 kicks, that kind of thing. And you start to get your own rhythm and potency with it. But when I thought about that, I was like, man, no, we need to. I want to put a lot of spraying in this part, because they would piss me off so bad. And I knew I would watch the skiers like and get in the way of the rails and all that, and get in the way of people in the park. And then the skiers would be mad at the snowboarders, and the skiers were the ones that would be in the way, right? Because they only look forward, right, going down. So they're not looking side to side. And then so the snowboarder that can look side to side and is watching everybody, carving around and having fun, it's not their fault in my eyes, right? But it wasn't their fault. So I would always look out for people, but the skiers would not look out, and then they'd reckon, and they'd be all mad, throwing their pole at you and stuff, and you get to grab their pole and throw it. But I knew how people felt. Like, I knew I wasn't the only one. I'm like, I want to put this in, and then you got to get into people's mind, right? Like, how do they feel? How do they feel? What are their problems? What do they think about? What are their frustrations, their pains, their challenges? And then that they identify. If you can get people to identify, that's the deal. So people identified with how I felt.
Well, you felt like spraying skiers and pissing the butters people off. But I have always wondered about that, because when you can own a little niche like that of like, I'm just going to spray the shit out of them, and then that spring slush, when it just demos them, they're just like, what the fuck?
Those are like heavy projectiles, the slushy ones, yeah. Because
oh man,
it's so good.
So maybe I'll switch gears a bit, but there's lots of learnings that snowboarding is teaching you about headspace and belief in yourself and whatever. Now in your new world, so when people ask you now in 2021, they haven't seen anything, like when they say, hey, what's your name? I'm Mark. They're like, hey, Mark, what do you do? ... So in 2021, and I say, hey, Mark, what do you do? How do you answer?
I help people make money from home now, and mindset stuff. Bring in more channels of income coming into their business. Every business needs more leads, more sales, more income coming in. That's all. You have to learn new things, mindset, new school business, but also financial education, right? Like, not a lot of people are financially educated. That was one of my problems, and why I blew a lot of money, wasted a lot of money, got taken advantage of from a lot of people. The system is rigged against you, like Wall Street and all the crap. So I teach all this stuff and coach, and it's, a lot of professionals are out there, but I know a lot of smart broke people, right?
So is the product courses? Is the product an app, a widget, a site, a design studio? Like, what is the offering essentially?
Yeah, it depends on what people or where they're at and what they want to do, what their passions would be. But there's all kinds of stuff. There's network marketing, internet marketing, affiliate marketing, all that kind of stuff. I have a blog. There's financial education programs. We're going to be opening up offices over here. There's like ClickFunnels is a software that you can use to build a business online, because traditional business, man, is dying, right? People with COVID, they had to learn how to make money from home and get more efficient and automated, and sell things online. There's tons.
So in 2021, what do you think the most effective way to make money from home would be?
If it depends on what you look, what people are looking for, right? For me, I just wanted to be home, like around my kids. So that would be home business, right? But then that depends on what you're into. If you're a kind of techie person, you can figure out how to leverage with Google, or have a blog. If you don't mind being on video, you can. It just depends. So I consult, or I send people through my own funnels to see how serious they are, and if you're coachable and learnable, you can find out. But I really sit down and find out what would be a good fit, right? And where they can start. We're in debt, they don't have money, so we figured out that you can make money with no money. That stuff is going viral. Some people might have seen like the viral whitening toothpaste online. We have to get that going, where you can make money with your Facebook. There's like all kinds of crazy stuff. It just depends on where people are, and if they have other business, like if they already have a business, you can teach them how to bring in more channels of income coming into the business with using their image.
Got it. And the revenue stream from it, is it pay for a course type thing? Do you pay it from engagement and then clip ticket on equity? Is it, there's a financial backing? Like, what are the different models of engagement? Because I asked because a good friend of mine in New Zealand, James Kemp, he was at a time living in Bali, selling the flipping dream, walking on the beach, blah, blah, blah. But the difference was he actually did it and was with $200 million companies, and he's a flipping baller. Yeah. One of the early things, like he's a weapon. But I keep saying to him, I was like, bro, you do realize that the wave of coaches selling courses to other coaches to be coaches, that literally looks like you. But the difference is you've actually done it, and you're not like any of these other guys. So how do you differentiate yourself with actual depth when there's so many of these? And I've also know several, let's just call them Muppets, who don't know flipping what they're doing, and they're there preaching the gospel of all this other shit. And it's like, dude, no, when you're not converting shit into that thing, you don't actually add any value stuff. You don't actually understand business. You're just exploiting this wave of coaches take our courses for coaches. So, but that's what I was asking about the revenue models. How do you, what are the ways that you think about genuine engagement for actual impact for businesses in a modern wave, when there's a lot that obviously don't know what they're doing?
Yeah, that's a great point right there. And that's what I was talking about, the dabbling, right? Because everybody's so. I want, like, this is why I love what I do, and I love talking about this stuff right here, because see, when I first jumped in, I didn't know shit either. So then I went out and trying to tell my friends, and I didn't know how to explain what I was doing, right? So most people at that point will give up because all their friends are like, whatever, go out and kill your dreams, right? Like, they don't know they're doing it. And back to that point we were talking about, you start like going off in another direction, and you're like taking off, right? But your friends are all right here, so they don't know that crabs in the bucket thing, but they'll go say little shit, nobody's gonna buy that stuff, and they don't know, they just don't want to lose you as a friend, right? So they grab you, and they try to pull you back down so they don't lose you as the friend. But like, man, you have to have a strong reason why. So I took the time, and I dug in and invested time and money into learning all this stuff. And some of that's called attraction marketing. Like, I do that too, where the way that you do it is you teach people for free, right? Like, your position, just like if you're a pro snowboarder, you don't have to sell stuff like, oh, I really got this razor sharp edge. I love the board because of the base and the flexibility, all this stuff. You're the authority of the subject, and so that you can kind of wear the hat. And then people are like, well, I want to ride whatever, if he's that good, he's probably riding the right stuff. I'm going to buy that. That's why the company's paid us, right? So when you learn the stuff, you hang in there long enough to actually learn it and do it and get the results, and you can teach it for free, right? So I have a blog. I do videos. I'll scale some ads, and then sell courses. So I sell some of those courses because those courses taught me how to do it, right? So I ended up, and what some courses teach you to do is marketing. They're marketing platforms. Some, like, one of the things is like it's an actual education platform that teaches you how to market, right? So most people that get into like all that marketing stuff, network marketing, which is, I still have a passion for that. I'm getting paid out of 17 countries from one of those.
Crazy.
So, but it wasn't from like chasing, you know, I tried the whole chasing your friends and family, like the nightmare way to do it. And that's when everybody thought I was crazy.
What's worse, going into business with your family or trying to sell them the course?
God. Yeah. And don't do any of that. I would never, like, and if you think about it later, I was thinking about, like, man, you know, I wouldn't even hire most of my family if I, you know, in a traditional business. So why would I ask them into a business, right? But no, but like, so you learn how to market, right? You got to invest in yourself and take courses, and you learn how to find people who are already interested in what you have to offer.
Got it.
So the platforms are so powerful that you can laser target people that are already proven to buy in that area and like already interested in what you have, right? So that's why you pick
yeah, no, totally get it. So if, you know, rewind back 20 years, you're the Don in one world. 20 years later, you're building this new one out. Fast forward 20 years from here, if we were to look in 3 chapters, what does that next wave look like if we think a decade or 2 down the track?
Man, Anthony Robbins changed my life, all the way around. Like, I originally, so I want to be Anthony Robbins, a mix between Anthony Robbins and Stevie Wonder. I have all my music here, like, yeah, I want to impact. I don't want to just do, you know, I just want to impact like Stevie Wonder does, right? Or like Anthony Robbins, man, God has his hand on that guy, on his freaking head, man. The dude, I went there for, you know, he's, you know, I heard, man, he can put, you know, you can learn how to get into your peak state as an athlete, right? Like he's done for Agassi and everyone else. So I kind of invested heavy to go do that. And I almost didn't go because everybody thinks they're busy in life, running around, being, you know, whatever. But I'm so glad that I got involved and started going to some of the next ones, the deeper ones, more, you know, more time in there. And it wasn't anything. I didn't come out of there with like crazy athlete guy. I came out of there with like a better relationship with my mom, you know, and just rewiring and everything that happened to me in my in my younger days was, I used to be mad about that stuff, you know. My mom was an alcoholic, so my sister's still mad about all that. I was mad too until I went there, and then I was reprogrammed and I'm like, I came out of there so stoked on everything that bad that happened to me, like, because it built me into the person I needed to be to do what I'm doing now, and I can help other people through all these barriers and roadblocks and stuff. So I just like the impact, man. I like learning how to be a better coach, rewire, reprogram mindset, break through barriers.
It's mega. So if people want to check out your website, the different bits and pieces that you're involved with, where can they go to, and where can they go? Is it marcfrankmontoya.com? What's the website? Where can they go? What can they do?
Well, if you're into kind of learning, you know, what's kind of on a money side, maybe hold you back there, I have endlessassets.com. If you're already in a home business, you already have your own like side hustle and stuff, you can go to nevercaseofthemondays.com, or you know, if COVID affected you, finallyworkfromhome.com, right?
Yeah.
So, but you can start with simple, my name, Marc Frank Montoya, MARC-FRANK.
I was about to say what to say. It's been a great chat, man, to go through a bit of memory lane from the world. Obviously, you know, coming up through the game, a huge amount of respect for everything that you've done within the space and the brand, and it was just, there was you helped lead a change in the world of snowboarding, which affected a whole bunch of people. So it is one that was definitely affected by and looked up to a lot. And for the brief interactions in the past and the goodwill that you've had, I really appreciate your time. And it's cool to, you know, wake up in another decade, still been in the game, and seeing, you know, relationships from the past move into the future as well, and seeing the transition's been pretty awesome to see. So I really appreciate your time, bro.
Man, I'm stoked to connect. Let's connect again. I'd love to go over there, visit. You come over here, man, hang out. We'll go goober out together in the waves, trying to learn. It's
Not my 12'2" super male. Take my fat ass up on there. Appreciate your time, Marc Frank Montoya. Pleasure talking to you, bro. Thanks so much, and best of luck down the line.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome, bro. All right, rock and roll, everybody. That was Marc Frank Montoya, snowboard legend, weapon in the game. Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. Enjoy the rest of the day, fam, and I'll talk to you.